Hey crafters, welcome to another episode in our dream vacation wardrobe sewing projects. I'm pretty excited about today's project because it is kind of an artistic challenge. The garment that I've been challenged to recreate is a caftan dress. And you guys probably have seen me make some caftans before. I know I made a 1920s style caftan dress. I'll link to that. That was a really fun project. But caftan dresses are just super basic dresses, basically a long piece of fabric with the hole for your head. I was recently introduced to a new style of caftan dress that I had not seen before that really intrigued me. And a big shout out to my cousin for wearing a fabulous caftan dress to a family gathering, and I loved her dress. She said it was super comfortable to wear, and we were both looking at this dress trying to figure out how it was made to see if I could recreate it. So there is the artistic challenge. Of course, it'd be a great piece for our staycation vacation wardrobes because caftans are so comfy, super breezy, perfect for right now. So excited to tackle this one. I'm also wondering, could we create a new aesthetic? Could we create Caftancore? Maybe this has already been done and I just don't even know about it, but this is a new one to me. We're gonna be tackling this caftan design and hopefully making Caftancore a thing. We'll see. Let's check out the fabric that I'm gonna be using and kind of the design that I'm thinking of, and let's get started. Well, here's my super sketchy sketch of what I'm trying to envision here, you guys. So my cousin's caftan that she was wearing appeared to have kind of this design. I've changed up a few things, but it was such a simple design, but it looked really cool on her, and I definitely want to try copying it. Okay, so it's basically a big rectangle of fabric that's basically folded in half, and there's a hole, a neckline for your head to go through, and then you have, one, square, a rectangle of fabric hanging down in front and a rectangle of fabric hanging down in the back. Pretty simple with the basic shape. But then you add some side seams starting kind of under your arm and going down as long as you want, and these side seams kind of go, roughly your body width, but you want to leave a little extra too. So I'm going to leave at least several inches between my body and the seam because I want a lot of breathability in this dress. I don't want these seams hugging my body in any way. I don't want this tight. So those side seams are going to go in. I definitely don't want to make them too high under the arms either, so I might need to lower that. But the side seams are there to, well, turn it into a dress, obviously. The edges of the fabric are just going to be left flowing. Like, these aren't attached together. They're just going to add kind of a fluttery fabriciness on each side. I'm also probably not going to make the side seams go down all the way to the length of the dress. I want to leave some basically slits. It's going to make little slits on each side in the fabric. Extra breathability. Hey. Now, the neckline on my cousin's caftan actually had kind of like a split neck and like a little placket coming down. So that looked really cute, but I think I'm feeling really lazy, so I might just make a scoop neck and edge that with seam binding. I could make a little placket, but I'm lazy. So I think I'm going to just simplify the neckline. Now, a cool element with her caftan, and this is something I hadn't seen before, was the way that they added some shape to this dress. And one way they did it, seemingly, from what I could tell, seemed like they added a little, almost like waistband piece in the front. Now, mine actually looks a little too big in this picture. I think on her dress it was a little narrower, so it almost looked like a cummerbund or like a belt just in the front of the dress. And so there's a little piece there, and then she showed me on the inside of the dress. So if you could, go to the inside of the dress instead of being on the outside. On the inside, there were little ties attached on the inside, kind of attached to this central like little waist piece. And there were ties on the inside, and they wrapped around her body inside the dress. And these ties were a little stretchy, and they were covered in fabric. And they tied around her waist, kind of like a belt, but on the inside, and just cinched the dress to her body and her waist like that, but from the inside, using this little belt piece as kind of a center focus, and also just a way to anchor the belt pieces, because I think there's actually one of these kind of oval shaped pieces on the inside of the garment too. That might not make a whole lot of sense, but a lot of you guys have seen caftans that have this basic shape, but then maybe have 2 buttonholes on the side that allow you to make a belt to cinch the waist in a little bit. This design, though, is having that belt basically be on the inside, so you don't see it on the outside. Hopefully, if I make the ties nice and stretchy, it wouldn't be uncomfortable either. She said her dress was very, very comfortable. So that's what I want to try. I think it's going to work. Let's check out the fabric and see what I got to do first. Okay, here's my fabric. Got this great remnant. It feels like a rayon blend because it's really drapey. I think it's going to be nice and cool to wear, so excited about that. And of course, you can't argue with a really great tropical print. Woohoo! Hey, well, I kind of have it laid out, doubled here on my cutting board, so you can kind of see my dimensions a bit. I think I'm going to make the length, I've got to square off the bottom, I think I'm going to make the length around 45 inches or so, and then the width here at the folded top part of the fabric, I think it's about 42 inches wide. So with those measurements, I think I'll get kind of a below the knee, maybe mid-calf length or so. I can't use all of the length because I do need to cut out 2 of the waist piece. So I think I'm going to use some of the extra fabric down below here to make 2 of those little like cummerbund type pieces to go on the dress. So I've got to do that first, and then I need some ties as well, and I need some fabric to cover these kind of elasticated ties I'm hoping to make for the inside. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to use a little bit of similar fabric from another project for that, so that I don't have to sacrifice too much length from this piece. So I do need to do a little trimming, do a little cutting, but I also have an extra step. Yeah, if your fabric doesn't have an obnoxious white selvage with writing on it, you don't have to hem the edges. You could just leave them as they are with the selvage and make them nice, light, and fluttery edges. But mine, on one side, has this selvage. So I'm going to have to roll a little hem all the way down the side of the fabric, and I'm going to do it on both sides so that they're even. So I've got a little hemming to do after I do some trimming and cutting out all my pieces. If your fabric doesn't have that, you can skip to the next step, but I'm going to get started on those steps, and then I'll show you what I got to do next. Well, I'm working on making a pattern piece for that waist piece in the front, and I think I'm going to change things up a little bit. I think I'm going to go for more of a rectangular shape instead of an oval shape, just because it may be a little bit easier for me to work with. We'll see. And then, gosh, I mean, how do I judge the length that I want this to be? I got out my tape measure and played around with it. I basically measured my waist in the front, just half of my waist, and then I took that in a couple inches on the side, because I don't want this piece to extend over the full width of the front of the dress. I just want it to be kind of in the middle. So I took half my waist measurement, measured in about 3 inches on each side. You could do more than that. And then figured out what that length was. And then I estimated about 3 inches on top of that to make this a wide rectangle, kind of a chunky rectangle here in the middle. So I think I'm going to want my finished piece to be roughly 10 inches by 3 inches when it's finished. So just on me, I think that's going to work. I could make it a little smaller. This may end up being a little longer than the original design was, but I think that's what I'm going to try first. And then I've been kind of making my pattern piece for that. I'm actually making my piece pretty big. I'm going to make it 12 by 5 inches. And I did that because I want to add an inch of seam allowance all the way around this thing, because I'm going to have to roll the edges over to make a finished edge. And I think I'm basically going to applique this waist piece to the front of the dress. So I want lots of extra to play with for rolling edges under. Not exactly sure how this is going to go, so I'm making this piece a little extra big for now, but I think it's going to work. Let's get back to cutting. Well, I hemmed the side seams and I got all the other pieces cut out. Let's take a look at what's going on here. Okay, gotta say, hemming those side seams took forever, and it's a little wonky. This rayon fabric is amazing, but it doesn't stay where you put it. It didn't want to do what it was told. Hey, so now I've also got some ties that I cut out of that extra fabric. Thankfully, it is also a nice rayon, so it should be just fine. And then I do have the panels cut out for that center part. And I did a little work on them. You can tell I rolled in some of the raw edges quite a bit as planned, ironed those down, and then stitched all the way around. And yeah, I think these are going to be okay. I'll choose whichever one looks better to use on the front, and then I'll use the one on the inside. I'm still playing with ways with, how I want to attach those, and then how I want to attach the straps to that. But yeah, we'll see when we get there. Okay, next steps. I think we got to turn our attention to the neckline and get the neck trimmed. Make a hole for my neck, my head, and then maybe even put in some side seams. We'll see. We'll see how far I get this evening. I folded my fabric in quarters here. You can see I've got my hemmed edges over on that side, and then here is the fold, and I've got a ton of pins in place to try to make sure this darn fabric doesn't move around too much. And I just kind of sketched just a really small neckline hole here, and I'm going to trim that off. I will probably need to enlarge the front of the neckline, but since I'm cutting all the layers right now, I don't want to cut it bigger than I really want the back neckline to be. I've noticed if I make the neck holes too big, sometimes the garment is just way too floppy. So I'm going to start small, and if I can't quite put it over my head, I'll probably make it a little bigger, and then after I've tried it on, I can see if I want to scoop the front neckline a little bit more or not. So I'm going to cut that neckline, and then I might end up figuring out where I want the side seams to go. I'll have to kind of try it on and just see, how much width I want around my body, and then where I want to put those seams that are gonna be my side seams. So I might play around a little bit with that tonight. We'll see how far I get, and then I'll show you tomorrow where I'm at. Hey, it's the next day, everybody, and you can tell I did get a little bit of work done last night on the caftan. You can check out the neckline. I did cut the neckline, and then I tried the caftan on and basically just pulled it over my head, and that let me kind of determine a few of the next steps. I did make the neckline a little bigger. You can tell I made it a little bigger in the front. I'm glad I didn't make it much wider though with my initial cut, because this is just wide enough. So yeah, cut smaller. I can always cut bigger. glad I didn't do that too much bigger. But then, as I tried on the caftan, I kind of just used my hands to pinch along the sides to see where I wanted the side seams to be. I made some marks, and then I ended up using some pins just to, it's kind of hard to see. Where is my stitch line? Oh, there it is. I did a stitch line all the way down until about 10 inches from the bottom of the caftan, and that's my side seam. It did take a little experimenting. After trying it on and making a guess, I did do a little line of pins instead of stitching right away, and tried the garment on, then adjusted a little bit before I actually stitched. And of course we've got side seam and another one, side seam. Woo, that's exciting. So once I had the side seams on, I could play around a little bit with our center kind of belt piece. I basically just, while I was trying it on, I just kind of moved it around to see where I liked it, made some markings, and then I laid the garment flat and used some of my quilter's rulers to try to line up this piece to make sure it was centered as much as possible with the neckline and with the side seams. I think it's pretty close. To pin it on, I actually stuck a plastic cutting board on the inside of the garment, so I didn't pin to both sides. Now that this is pinned on, I think I'm going to baste this in place with just some big stitches that I can take out later, because I then want to open the garment up, and working from the inside, I want to attach the other waist piece. And if this one is secure, then I can just match up the other one on the inside to basically this one as well, because I want them to match. So I've got to do a little basting. I need to get the other waist piece. Oh, and then I also need to make my elastic straps, because I'll want to attach those to the waist piece on the inside. I think we're on the right track. Okay, well, I stitched the belt piece onto the front using just some basting stitches to hold it in place. And now you can see we're looking at the inside of the garment, and I lined up the other belt piece basically right on top of the one on the front, just kind of doing it by feel, and pinned it on. So that means we need to stitch both of these belt pieces together. Let's take a look. All right, well, when I do some stitching, I think I'm just going to follow the line of my original stitching all the way around. I'll do it from the front side, try to make it look as nicely matched up as possible, and I will sew all through the layers. I'll sew the one on the front to the dress and the one on the back, sewing them all together in one fell swoop, and then I can take out basting stitches that I used on the front to get those out of the way. All right, but before I do this, I need some straps. Hey, I'll show you how I made these here in a minute, but here's one strap. Before I stitch the belt piece on, I want to put one of my little straps in here. I think I'll stick it in maybe about an inch or so, and pin it in. So this is on the inside again. Remember, these straps are going to go around the body on the inside of the garment, kind of going all around the back and tying the back to cinch this front belt piece in towards the body a little bit. Okay, so here's what I want to do. Let's take a look at how I made the strap in the first place. Okay, so I've got a long tube of fabric. Remember, this is another remnant that's also the same material, so it's great. Stitched it up, got both ends of the tube open. Now we got to turn this thing inside out. So let's do that. I'm using a safety pin. Very, very low tech method here. Okay, let me double check that you guys can see what I'm doing here. All right, yeah, I think we're good. Safety pin, sticking on the inside. Keep going. Hey, we can turn it right side out this way. Could also use a bodkin if you have one. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. Come around this way a little bit. Do-do-do. Alright. Alright, we're almost there. Almost to the other end here. Whew. All right, woohoo! We've got a strap. Now to make these a little bit stretchy, I'm putting in a little bit of elastic on the inside. I'm gonna use my safety pin again. And just use my safety pin to help draw this elastic right up the inside of the strap. Alright, well, we got our elastic in here. So, now I've got to do a little bit of sewing to finish up this strap before I can stitch it in to the waist piece. So I think for the end that's going to get put into the belt piece, I'm just going to pin the elastic into the tube, and I'm going to do a little zigzag stitch just to secure the elastic. This is the end that will get hidden on the inside of the belt, so I don't need to really finish the end very much. I just need to secure that elastic. And then on the other end, I think I'm gonna kind of try to make my fabric a little bit scrunchy, just a little bit. This would let me then stretch the strap a little bit if there's like a little bit of extra fabric. And then I'm gonna stitch this end again to keep the elastic in place. I think I'll trim the elastic short and then just kind of roll the raw edges under and stitch again. Let's see if we can see that on the other strap. Okay, I'm gonna hold this up close for you guys. All right, here's what I did. Let's focus in a little bit. All right, so here's the, it's kind of hard to see, but here's the finished end of the other strap that I did. Oh, sorry, we just don't want to focus here, do we? There we go. So I did stitch a line to keep the elastic in place, and then I trimmed it, rolled these raw edges in and stitched again so the elastic is secured and the raw edges are secured too. So that'll give me 2 straps. Once this one is finished, I can pin it in to the side of my waist piece and actually sew that in place. Let's go for it. Okay, got that belt piece put on, got the tie straps sewn. I think we're good to go, except I do need to hem the dress and then I need to finish the neckline. And I think basically I'm going to do what I usually do with dresses and just use a little single fold bias tape and do that around the neckline. Now I'm probably going to do this part off camera because it's getting a little late, and I usually do this process on, well, almost every dress I do. So you could definitely check out some of my previous projects, or if you've never worked with single fold bias tape, just look up a YouTube video on that and they'll walk you through the process. It's pretty straightforward stuff. I like it for finishing off necklines in an efficient way. But hey, I'm going to work on that, and while I do, you guys, it's a great time for you to hit that like button if you found this video amusing, and of course, subscribe for more videos from Partners in Craft. Thanks for sharing the love, you guys. It makes a big difference. Okay, guys, I will get sewing and I'll show you what she looks like when we're done.